Hello. This video is going to walk through how the UrbanCode Deploy Blueprint Designer uses Terraform to do full stack deployments with vRealize automation. To begin with, in my VRA instance, I've identified a particular catalog item of interest. I can look at the blueprint definition for this catalog item and see I have a couple of virtual machines. These are vCenter or vSphere virtual machines in this case. I can see the build information and other relevant information coming from vSphere itself for this definition of my blueprint. I have machine resources, storage, and also I'll call out a couple custom properties I've added. Note that both are marked show and request, but only one of them is overridable. We'll get back to that later and how the blueprint designer is consuming that information. Back in the blueprint designer, I've defined a cloud connection for my VRA instance. I've specified my credentials and host information, and my connection is working. Also, I've defined a Terraform orchestration service as well in the blueprint designer, and that's operational as well. Lastly, I'm using a Git repository to share my Terraform templates. I've already cloned in the Git repository I'm using. So now we're ready to get started creating a Terraform project. We'll create a new Terraform project and give it a name. We can now see in the palette on the right side that our VRA catalog items are discovered. I'm going to find the one that I was looking at previously and drag and drop it onto the diagram. I have a couple options here. One is to include catalog resources for my catalog entry. This will actually use the Terraform provider construct to kick off a request for that catalog item. The other one gives me a choice to create server resources from the VMs that were discovered in that blueprint. We now have created some Terraform resources based on our VRA catalog. We have a provider stanza at the top, and we also have a definition of our VRA catalog item. We have a reference to the catalog item by name, and also have discovered all of the available input properties for this invocation of a VRA catalog item. Note that we've discovered testprop1 from our web server, but not testprop2 since that one was not shown as overridable. We can define a variable for the testprop1 such that we can define a new value for it at provision time. Next, notice there are two null resources that have been defined for each of the virtual machines that were discovered in the underlying VRA blueprint. We've added connection information for each null resource that is using the introspected IP address dynamically generated when the VRA catalog item was kicked off. From these null resources that we generated, we can hang additional Terraform provisioners. In this case, I'm going to install a UCD application. I drag and drop my first UCD component, and looking at the source, we've added the typical UCD Terraform resources, but also note we've added a UCD provisioner. This UCD provisioner is going to install an agent onto the VRA infrastructure using that connection information that we set up when we introspected the VRA catalog item. I'll go ahead and complete the definition of all of my UCD application components. Using the deployment sequence tool, I'll specify some execution order for my application components, since in this case I'm using component process execution instead of application process execution. I'll also specify a value for my required JKE database host. This is going to be pulled from the database virtual machine's IP address as available from the VRA resource. We've made that specification, and we can see now that we're referencing the IP address straight from the VRA7 Terraform resource. I'll add some outputs into my Terraform so I can view the generated IP addresses after execution. Next, I'll check in my changes to the Git repository. From the commit window, I can see my changed files. I'll add a commit message, and I will push the changes to my Git remote. Now I'm ready to provision my Terraform. I'll click the provision button and give my Terraform stack an environment name, selecting my orchestration service. I'll specify my Git access token, and now I can provide values for all of my variables. After specifying all my variable values, I initiate the provision. I can see a list of all the running environments that I have in my system, including the most recent one that we've initiated. That status is in progress. After waiting a few moments, the environment is complete and the status is running. We can look at what's happened on the vRealize system. We have a new deployment, and we have a couple new virtual machines with IP addresses. We can take a look at the actual request that was made on VRA. And see we have successful provisioning of vCenter virtual machines. Back in the Blueprint Designer, we can look at some more details on our environment. We see all the resource details. We can also grab the Terraform state for any of these resources that have been provisioned. Here's the information from the VRA7 catalog item. We can see the IP addresses for the virtual machines are available. Also, we see the input variables we used for this particular provision. And the output variables that we specified in our Terraform template. Here's our IP addresses that we captured as outputs. We can also look at the log file, which shows the detailed execution from Terraform of all of the different resources that have been provisioned from Terraform. Over in UCD, we can verify that we've created a new environment for our JKE application. The resource tree was built, our components were mapped, and we have two new agents running on VRA infrastructure. We can grab the application URL and verify that our application has been successfully deployed from UCD, and we can log into it verifying our database connectivity. Now that we're done with our environment, we can go ahead and destroy it. This will initiate a Terraform destroy action, which will tear down all of the resources that we initially provisioned. After a few moments, our Terraform destroy action has completed. And now we can delete the environment from management from the Blueprint Designer's Terraform service.